the very first book chronologically. And constant readers, welcome back to my channel, Elvis Loves Books. I'm your host, Elvis, and today we will be talking about The Last Wish, the very first book chronologically in the Witcher series. Before I get started, let me tell you a little bit about this series, what I know at least. The way the books are numbered is not how you should read them. I learned that from doing research on my own and watching other booktubers talk about this series. I don't know a lot about The Witcher. The most experience I have with the story is through the video game The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. I've never finished that game. I've started it multiple times, and then schoolwork just gets in the way, and then when I go back, I have no idea, what I was doing, where I left off. I'll start over. The same thing will happen again. But after reading this first book, I think I'm going to go on Steam, and I think I'm going to buy all 3 of the games and really get into the games because this book was fantastic. Before we begin, there are a total of 8 books in the entire series, and I just wanted to go through them real quick before we did anything else in the video. So The Last Witch, that's the first book. And then after that, you go on to Sword of Destiny, which I've already started. And then the next 3 I have in this this cool little box set. And I don't know if you can see that, but they're numbered up here, 1, 2, 3, and then the next one is numbered 4, 5. But you shouldn't read them in that order, and I'll explain why here in a minute. Blood of Elves is the next one, and then you have A Time of Contempt, Baptism of Fire, and then you move on to book 4, which is The Tower of Swallows, book 5, Lady of the Lake, and like I said, book 5 is actually book 7. And then the final book is Season of Storms. With the exception of Season of Storms, these covers are absolutely beautiful, I think. They look really good sitting on a shelf. My biggest complaint, though, and publishers, they continue to do this, and it is one of the most irritating things, at least for me, as someone who loves books. And this one, there's nothing you can do about it. Every single book, except for the last one, has this right here on it. That's not a sticker. This is part of the book itself. It can't be removed, and it just, to me, it totally ruins these covers. It's on every single one except the last one. Even the box, let me move this stuff out of the way. Even the box has it here. It has it here. And then it's on every single book when you pull them out of here. I hate that. Why publishers continue to do that, I don't know. It's bad enough when they put the sticker on there and you have to peel the sticker off, and then you have to figure out how to get the adhesive off without ruining your book. Just so you know, a product called Goo Gone works really good at that. Spray some on a rag, wipe it. It usually takes that stuff right off, and it doesn't damage your book cover. But these, you're just stuck with it, and I hate it. So, like I was saying, I don't know much about The Witcher. I am not an expert in any way. The first time I ever heard of The Witcher was when The Witcher 3 came out. It looked like an amazing game. From what I've played, it is an amazing game. And from what I've been told, The Witcher 3 actually takes place after these books. And Geralt, who is the Witcher of the story, evidently doesn't remember And I don't know if we find out in this series why he doesn't remember, but he doesn't remember a lot of the events of what happened in the books. At least that's what I'm told. If I'm wrong, comment below and let me know that I'm wrong. So yeah, I didn't know anything about the books until maybe like a year ago. And I thought it was like the Halo books, that the books were based on the games. And I didn't even know about the first 2 games until the 3rd game came out. So that's how like much I don't know about this series. So I'm going into this series not really knowing anything, any history or anything. What I do know is I'm not sure because I really didn't get like any clarification when I was researching this, but I don't know if it's the Last Wish and the Sword of Destiny, or if it was just this this book. One thing these books don't tell you, front or back, anywhere, is they're short stories. I had no idea how weird it was that it was going to be to read these, because I knew it was short stories, but I figured like you read one story, you went to another story, kind of like Stephen King when he does like a collection of short stories. You read one story, it's over and done with, you go on to the next one. This is not like that, and I'll get to that in a minute. But going back to what I was saying, this collection of short stories, at least from my understanding, and comment below if I'm wrong, the first book, The Last Wish, were put into magazines before they were put into book form. Maybe that's why they're so awkward in their transition, I don't know. And then they were later put together in one collection of The Last Wish. But this book, it was amazing. I haven't read fantasy since I was a kid, because I heard so much about Wheel of Time, Malazan, the John Gwynne series. That's why I got back into fantasy, because they sound like really good stories, and I want to read them. And this being my first series back into the fantasy genre, I really enjoyed it. This book, from beginning to end, was incredible to me. I liked it. I have very, very few negative things to say about it. One thing that I will say that I've already mentioned is the transition. There's nothing that clues you in when you start reading this book that they're short stories. And they're not... You have one arcing story that's the whole book. And while the telling of that story comes in different sections, in between you have these other stories of The Witcher and adventures that he's been on, people that he's met, things that he's done. And they all have kind of a moral of the story, and the overarching moral is that sometimes monsters aren't always the evil thing in the forest that's terrorizing the town. More often than not, it's man itself. And it's not preachy, but that is kind of the overall moral theme of the story. People, they look at witchers, like they're these vile creatures because they're not considered human. And, sometimes even the witcher is the monster. And it's kind of like, well, the way you treat people, you're kind of a monster yourself. It's kind of that kind of thing. So, the main story of this book, there's a king. His daughter has had a curse put on her, and this curse can be lifted. and the Witcher is hired, and his name is Geralt. He's hired to capture the princess, bring her back to the castle unharmed, so this curse can be lifted. And there's all these instructions that once she's brought back must be done, and she's going to be kind of damaged for the rest of her life, but the king gets his daughter back. And so you kind of follow this story in pieces as the book goes on, and then in between, through conversation or like flashbacks or memories, because the Witcher suffers almost a mortal wound in capturing the princess, and so he's kind of in and out of consciousness, and some of these stories are kind of like dreams that he's having. And they're told really well. I've heard a lot of people complain about there's not a lot of descriptive text. You really struggle to figure out what is going on. I didn't struggle with that. I thought that there was just enough description that you were put in the scene and you knew what was going on. And the dialect, to me, was amazing. It was like watching like a Quentin Tarantino movie, where his movies are really heavily dialogue driven. That's how this book is. And to me, it made the book easier to read, easier to follow along, because you could picture in your mind as you're reading this book the interaction between these characters. And you totally had no problem with if characters liked each other the way they talked to each other. And if there was animosity, you knew it by the things that they said, the things that they did throughout their actions in the little bit of descriptive text that there was. So I don't have a complaint about that. My complaint is the world building is lacking. There's not a lot of it. You know that the Witcher, Geralt, he's from this place called Rivia. You don't know where that's at. You travel to other places in these stories. You don't know where that's at. You don't know the name of this world. You're just kind of dropped in, and you have to start figuring things out for yourself as you read the books. And with these transitions in the story, some of them, they end really abrupt, and you continue on to the next chapter, and it takes you, 3, 4, 5, sometimes a couple, 3 to 5 paragraphs, sometimes a couple pages to figure out, what is going on. And then, you realize, oh, this is, another story. And then it always, you always know when you're going back to the main story because of the way the chapters are titled. So you know when you start that chapter that, okay, but time has gone by, and you really don't know what's happened in that time gap. Sometimes it's filled in, sometimes it isn't, and it takes you a minute to be like, oh, okay, so not much has gone on, now this is happening, but you know where you're at in the story. It's not like you get lost or anything like that. It's just there's some awkward transitions. The author, Andrzej Sapkowski, is Polish, and these were written in Polish, and the translation, I didn't see any problem with the translation. There were no awkward sentences or anything. It was really, really well done on the translation. And you can get these books in hardcover, but they are really expensive. I recommend if you're going to pick them up and check them out, just get the soft cover or get digital copy. I wouldn't spend the money to get a hardback collection. They are good, but I wouldn't call them like, that kind of money worthy. Like right now, I'm looking at buying like a $200 set of Lord of the Rings, and it's all leather bound and everything. To me, that's the kind of story that you spend that kind of money on. I've seen these hardbacks go for $100 or more on eBay. If you can find a translated hardback, I think they're even more. But yeah, they're hard to find in hardback. So the world building is lacking. The magic system is also lacking. There is magic in the book. So the Witcher, he has a form of magic that he does, and he makes these symbols in the air, and it's kind of like that's how he casts a spell. And he does things. He has one. It's kind of like a force push from Star Wars. He can cast this sign, and it'll send a force to his opponent and knock them down, or it'll stun them. He does one in another story where it creates like a force field around him, because people are throwing stuff at him, and none of this stuff ever hits him because of this force field. He does another one that he deflects a spell that's cast at him, and the spellcasters are your sorcerers and your sorceresses, and that's kind of like your traditional magic. They actually cast a spell, but none of it's really explained, like how does it work, or anything like that. The Witcher, that's another one. It's kind of loosely explained, like what Witchers are. We know from this first book that Witchers are taken as a child from their birth family, and they are then raised by Witchers, and through potions and different herbs and teachings and stuff, they go through this transformation where they're considered no longer human. They are now Witcher. And with that comes like the ability to see in the dark. Your eyes look different than human eyes. Through potions and stuff, you can move super fast. You use 2 different swords as a Witcher, and those are explained. One is a solid silver sword. That's for slaying monsters and fighting monsters. The other sword is made of meteorite, and it is for fighting human foes. But they really haven't gone into much of the background on what all it entails to become a Witcher. They've kind of explained it, but they really haven't gone into detail about it. And with The Witcher being such a main, figure in these stories, the story revolves around him. I would like some more background, and maybe that comes in later books. I don't know, but that was kind of disappointing. We didn't get more of the Witcher's backstory. We know that, and one thing that you hear about in the video game, and it's one of the stories in here, is he's also known as the Butcher of Blavkin, I think is how you pronounce it. And you actually get to see that story and see how he got that nickname. Another really cool event that you learn about if you've played the opening of the Witcher 3 video game is how him and Yennefer got to meet and become an item. So that was a really neat story to see. But there's not there's just not a lot of explanations, and that's where the book is lacking. Like, they describe the monsters that he fights really well, but if you really want to know, like, what they are and how dangerous they are and some of their background, you really have to look that stuff up, because they don't tell you enough in the book. Besides that, it was an amazing book. The book does have two endings. At least I think it does. And I'm not sure this is a spoiler, so I'll put a spoiler alert here. Mute your volume for 10, 15 seconds or whatever. And I'll give you time. 3, 2, 1. Okay, spoiler alert. The first ending, after the fight, when he humiliates the knight, I forget the dude's name, Followick or something like that. It was the best. I was cheering. I wanted him to beat this dude up, maybe even kill him, but the ending to this beef between the two of them, it was done so well, and I totally enjoyed it. Now the second ending, the way the book ends, the last page of the book, you're just like, what the hell just happened? And I actually went back a few pages and read, like, maybe I missed something. And it abruptly ends, and you're just like, what the hell? Well, I started the Sword of Destiny. It doesn't pick up where the last wish ended. And so I'm still wondering, like, what the hell just happened? So I'm hoping that ending gets explained later, because I do want to know what the hell just happened. And yeah, the second book, I've already started it. It does not pick up where the first one left off. Right now, Geralt has killed a basilisk, and he met these 3 new people, and they are in a tavern drinking beer and feasting on all this food. So you really don't know who they are yet. But you have no idea, like, where's Dandelion, where's Yennefer, what happened in between where the first book started and now this book picked up. I hope to get the second book done in a few days to maybe a week. It really depends on how my schoolwork goes. I'm totally looking forward to the rest of the series. I've heard that when you get on towards the end, like I think it's book 5 or 6, that it really drags, and that's usually where people just, I'm done. I can't read it anymore. I'm hoping it's not like that, because the first book was so good. It was so well done. Really enjoyed it. I highly recommend it. Check it out. I don't think you need to know anything about this world or what is going on to read it and enjoy it. Like I said, I don't know much about it. I looked some things up. I've watched I've watched a couple booktubers talk about this first book. It gets, from what I've seen, really good reviews, and I'm hoping the rest of the series is the same way, because it was total blast. Cannot wait to see what happens in this second book. So if you like this video, hit that like button, hit subscribe, hit that bell button so you know when my next video is going to be out. Starting in October, I will do a weekly kind of what's going on video, and talk about what I'm reading, maybe what I plan to read. I really don't do like planned reading list. I just kind of play it by ear, whatever I feel like. I'm thinking after this Witcher series is done that I'm either going to try and do Wheel of Time or maybe Malazan. But that's where I'm at so far. I'm still reading, if you watched the last video, I'm still reading Black House. I'm not going to review that. I am working on a Stephen King video, and I still haven't decided if I'm going to stop my read through of his work and start over and start doing that on the channel also, or just wait until I finish it on my own and then introduce Stephen King to the channel. But yeah, that's all I got for you guys. Like I said, I hope you enjoyed this video. The Last Wish, amazing book. Definitely check it out. Until next time, read more books.